I'm going to take you through a couple of slides today, a little bit of a presentation regarding Compete, what we do, how we fit into kind of the wider Kantar and WPP group, and then talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing by connecting various data assets and connecting the dots. And there's been a lot of talk in some of the other discussions that have been held today and yesterday about connecting different data sets and putting them all together, how to make sense of it, where does content fit in, where does the customer fit in, and how do all these different things all kind of interlock and all talk to each other. So I take you through a couple of things. We may have some time at the end for some Q&A, and if not, feel free to grab me afterwards. Okay, so just to sort of give you a little bit of context where Compete sits. So we are part of Kantar Media. Kantar Media is a very large company. You'll probably be more familiar with the individual brands like Millward Brown, TNS, TGI, bit of a house of brands. Some of the brands even bigger in some cases than the actual kind of parent company, which is well known, but some of the brands obviously have sort of a bigger impact. Number of different sort of Kantar operating companies. The company I work for, Compete, fits under the Kantar Media, along with people like TNS and TGI. So a little bit sort of about Compete. So how I would kind of phrase this is kind of we really understand really what consumers are doing online. And that's kind of a broad statement. But we observe what they're doing online. We know where they're going online. We know what they're purchasing online. We know who they are, what they are, how they're searching, how they're arriving at certain sites, how the basket size stacks up. Are they converting? Are they not converting? We have a massive, massive panel across the world where we're really looking at what consumers are doing online. Coupled with that, we also have surveying capability, so we actually have a subset of that very large sample where we actually can survey these people. So now not only are we observing their online behavior, we can now ask them questions about their attitudes, their behaviors, the reasoning around certain things, and then put those sort of two things together. So that's quite a powerful data set. A lot of things that we work, so we obviously work with big brands, advertising agencies and media companies. We look at advertising and promotions and effectiveness, look at sort of site and website and benchmarking, look at the flows of traffic to and from a site. So we can look that a person started at a Google, what that particular search was, how they went through an entire website, where did they end up afterwards, what did they put in their basket, how much was the basket worth, what credit card did they pay with, a whole bunch of sort of things around that. So a lot of sort of both syndicated media tools as well as more customized tools. And there's a lot of things that we can kind of do. Once we kind of have the discussion, we kind of scope out the things with our clients. Give you sort of a little bit of credibility. We are an online insight and analytics company, but we also are doing the same things that a lot of the companies attending here are doing. So we actually have a website which sells a syndicated service via a freemium model. That has to have traffic driven to it. We have to look at our SEO. We have to look at our PPC and our affiliate channels to drive traffic to that particular website. It has an e-commerce platform, so people are engaging with that site, upgrading their particular service and giving their credit cards and paying. So we run that is a part of the business that we're doing. We power a top 10 ad age blog. Again, requires content constantly, needs to be timely. So we have a blog, we have a freemium website, we have an app that we actually just had last week in New Orleans. We have an annual digital CMO summit that we run every year where we invite a lot of CMOs from very large companies. We built an app this year which gave the speakers the content over that thing. And we also have a very big social presence across the major sites. So again, how do we interact with our clients and our customers? How do we build a social presence on that? And again, kind of four things which I'm sure are very similar to a lot of the companies that are here today. So I kind of put down sort of four sort of high level kind of bullet points, a kind of phrase kind of where things are going. I mean, again, personally, what I took away over sort of for the last couple of days is that it's actually a very exciting time to be working in digital. If you listen to all the presentations that were given over the last sort of couple of days, yes, there is a lot of maybe misunderstanding or lack of knowledge across some of the areas, but it's also a very exciting time to be working in digital and trying to work out how these things all interconnect and how we play with all these bits of data, how do we bring them together, and then how does the consumer benefit. I think the opportunities for marketers, I think, are phenomenal at the moment. I think it's probably richer than probably any time, at least that I remember, working in this space. So again, I think that the thing that we have to move forward here is how do you actually then move from data to insight and then to making that actionable? So there's no shortage of data. There's absolutely no shortage of information out there, but how do you bring all that together? How do you act on it? How do you make it, and how do you enable it? And then how do you actually better that for your campaigns, for your consumers, for your overall marketing, and stuff like that? And I think, again, I mean, if you think of some of the presentations that we heard today, I mean, the last point in particular. So you look at the presentations that we just saw from people like Coca-Cola and some of the other campaigns. I mean, the brands that find these connections will be able to navigate the new digital economy, winning the hearts and minds and wallet share of today's connected customers. And I think some of the campaigns that we saw, which were totally integrated, involving a very large social component, as well as a large advertising component, media component, creative component, I think they were the ones. And you certainly saw all the metrics about brand uplift, overall sales, and things like that regarding the actual campaign. So these are some of the questions that we can answer. Again, there's a kind of a raft of different ways that we can kind of collect this. It could be survey behavior, could be panel-based behavior, a lot of different ways that we can do, but just to kind of give you an idea of the sort of things that we can get down to. So how do you engage? Again, I think a lot of companies struggle with actually how do we engage clients? Where do we go to get them? We think we may know what our target demographic is, but where are they online? How do I approach them? How do I market to them? Are they different from my online consumer? They have different preferences. Do they hang out in different places? What kind of media do they use? What is their media consumption? Again, is that very different from their online to their offline? Is it a completely different beast? Attitudes, sort of. What does the lady here when she's doing her shopping? What does she think of us? How does she relate to me? How does she relate to my brand? What does she think about it? How do they buy? Do they prefer going in a shop? Do they prefer buying online? What's their sort of their consumption patterns for buying? And how does she talk to others? So I mean, how do they relate to their own network of people? How do they promote us via their network of people? How do they engage social media and things like that? And then how do we enforce loyalty? Do we automatically assume that loyalty is a given, or do we have to work in order to earn that kind of loyalty? So a number of different areas and things that we can kind of answer. So this is the sort of the different kinds of data. I'm actually going to build out this slide in its entirety because they really are interconnected. So these are not disparate data sets. These are not things that you necessarily can look at in just pure isolation and then try and understand the whole of the kind of the ecosystem. You can't really look at web analytics in silo. You can't look at how your site's doing without having any context of the external environment. Same thing with all the other kind of things. So again, offline purchases. So am I doing well? I think I'm doing well, but how does it actually compare to my competitors? Are my conversion rates in and around what my competitors are doing, or actually are my conversion rates really low and I thought I was doing a good job, but actually when I compare to similar sites, actually I'm not doing so good. Whole bunch of kind of other things. How do my competitors react, or how do my competitors, consumers, interact with social media? How do my own consumers interact with social media? So again, a lot of sort of information around all the different disparate kind of data sets, but how do they all kind of interrelate and interact to really sort of build up a sort of whole sort of picture of the overall consumer? So if the previous slide wasn't confusing enough, then we start looking at sort of things like this. And you start looking and saying, oh my God, that's an awful lot of data. That's an awful lot of things that I've got to understand, get across, get information of in order to build up a whole picture and then put that into either my marketing plan, my media plans, and it's very disparate. So you look at sort of what is the connection between search and loyalty? What are the connections between consideration for purchase and media planning? So all these things are kind of interrelated, but there is a plethora of information and a plethora of different data sets and disparate data sets that really kind of need unifying to put in some sort of coherent message. So I thought I'd give you a couple of case studies. So these are actual case studies. I've kind of blanked out the names of the companies, but these are case studies of particular engagements that we've done. And I think the interesting thing is on these ones is that this is actually part and parcel of actually Kantar Media as a whole. So this isn't just some of the stuff that we can do with Compete. This is actually how do we interact with the wider Kantar Media Group, as well as WPP, bringing in specialist areas or specialist companies that deal in specialist data areas and bringing that into a particular engagement and then feeding that back to the client. So this is an interesting one. So this was actually identifying the role of branded websites on the purchase path. We did a piece with a very large athletic footwear brand, one of the largest in the world, and really what they wanted to understand was what is the role of the branded website in consumers' decision-making, consumer purchase paths, and is there a need for the actual brand site, and what does that play in the overall sort of consumer experience? So a number of things that kind of we worked on. So a lot of the things were just in market sort of things. How big is my target market? How many shoppers, again, if we look for in an online perspective, how many shoppers are in market for buying footwear, trainers, we call them in English. So again, just giving some overall sort of perspective about the size of the market that they need to approach. And then looking again, what is the percentage of purchases made offline versus online? So how dominant is online for purchases? How big is offline? What's the play between them? Is one trending on a higher rate than the other one? Are more people adopting online purchases as opposed to offline? And then looking at the offline channels. So what were the other areas that people engaged throughout what we call the path to purchase experience? So what were all the different steps and all the other different brands that people engaged, websites that they visited, how did they search? What were all the paths that people did in order to actually put a footwear in their basket and then click on the sort of the checkout. And then another piece also, we looked at what are the barriers to online purchase on brand sites. So I'll show you in a minute. So one of the things that was interesting for us is that not many people were purchasing on the brand site. The brand site was the brochure, and then people went off to the various retailer sites to actually do the purchase. And the brand themselves were actually were curious, why aren't people purchasing on my particular site? Not that it's bad for us because they're purchasing via our retail channels, but why aren't they purchasing directly with us? Have we got that trust of the consumer, or are we just really sort of an information portal, and in the consumer's eyes they don't really view us as kind of as a place where you could actually transact? So I think brands are often also, I mean, we heard, I think, for some of the sort of the creme de la creme brands in some of the presentations. But I think on the whole, a lot of brands are actually quite confused where to spread their marketing mix. I think they want to be across everything, and they're not always sure what the dominant area is. So what is the split between earned, owed, and paid? Where do they put the dominant marketing spend to get an uplift in ROI, which in this case would be an increase in shoe sales? So one of the first pieces of work that we did with this particular footwear manufacturer, we looked at attitudinal research. And one of the things that we saw when we sent out the survey to the same people that we were monitoring also their web experience and their online path experience and purchase behavior, we did a survey just to sort of see what is the reason that people went to the footwear branded website. And the primary reason was really to see the full line. So it was very much informational based. The brand website was very much a brochure for the brand itself and also for the various products that brand sells. And the second one was also about to find information about specific footwear. But actually much further down, and a very small percentage, only of those people really actually purchased from the brand website. So then we asked another follow-up question to that. Having found out that kind of information, then the follow-up question to that was actually, so what was the reason why you didn't purchase from a brand website? And the interesting thing is that actually price played a huge part in this. So they wanted to try and find the footwear at a better price. And so there was a lot of searching, a lot of discounted retailers, a lot of high street department stores, big branded sites. They thought they could get a better price, and that actually maybe the actual brand itself might be slightly more expensive than if they went to sort of a high street branch. The other couple of things also were quite high up, not in the same proportion, but also the site didn't offer free shipping. So again, that was playing it back to the brand and actually identifying that actually free shipping does play a very large component in a purchase path of someone who's buying online. And again, there was some other ones about the footwear I wanted wasn't available on the site. But again, it kind of gave us some top line and two major questions that we had to feed back to the brand, why they were visiting the site and why they weren't buying. And again, so now we understood that, then we can start looking at some other levels of data and start sort of taking this apart a little bit more. So I spoke a little bit before about some of the things that we can do, and one of the areas that we can look at is things are called path to purchase. So that's really looking end to end how consumers get from searching, interest, right down to actually putting that product into their basket and checking out, and all the things that happen kind of across that process. So we actually looked at this. So what we were looking here is really sort of connecting those attitudes that we looked at before and then connecting them to the behavior to actually look at a step-by-step process of what people did, or what did the average consumer do when they were looking at buying particular footwear. So if I just give a little bit. So the B is the brand website. So that would be someone like Nike, Reebok, Adidas in this particular case. D is the department store. So again, if you're American, that would be particularly like a Target, a Walmart. If you're English, it'd be John Lewis, potentially a Tesco. C would be competitors, so that would be the same as the brand, but obviously not the particular one that actually is the pushes good at the end. Pure plays, so these are just pure online players, so that potentially be people like Amazon, eBay, Overstock, and people like that, and how do they interplay in the particular path. The last one are the retailers themselves, so that's people like Sports Direct, JJB Sports, Foot Locker, specific kind of sports retailers. So you can see actually that the brand website is marginally between the top two areas, is the first website that they visit. They then go to the actual retailers themselves, so the specific retailers, so brand website to specific retailers, and then onto purchase. And that was actually 2% above going from the brand to the pure play. So going from, let's say, a Nike, Adidas, Reebok, going to an Overstock, sort of a John Lewis, sorry, not John Lewis, an Amazon, an eBay type of store. The other ones actually were much lower down. So those two key areas really represented 2/3 of actually the experience and how people interacted and what were the steps that they took in the actual sort of conversion process. So again, the insight that we actually learned from this, it was good to go back to the actual brand and sort of say, well, this is the interplay of your brand website in the consumer process, in that decision. We would recommend that definitely more trade marketing is needed in order to ensure that people realize that they actually can buy from the branded website and don't feel necessarily need to take it a step down and then go to more distributed kind of retailing environment. And obviously the other two things which we saw on the previous slide, lower the pricing. So the pricing would have to be more competitive and in line with the high street retailers and the pure plays. And then the other one was actually maybe you need to also look at your overall kind of shipping strategy. So if you're not looking at sort of offering free shipping and your retailers are, then that step could be the differential between getting the person to buy and actually getting them not. And a lot that actually was quite a high consideration in people's purchase behavior. Okay, so the next case study. So this was actually also a very large global beverage manufacturer. And again, what we were trying to quantify here was really the kind of the impact and the ROI on their overall ad spend. And I think a lot of brands do kind of struggle with this in a kind of an end-to-end process. So on behalf of this large beverage manufacturer, we set out to understand actually the influence of a very large mix of a sort of a $4 million campaign. So it was actually very important for us to understand, if we take that person as the actual consumer of this particular beverage, what is her awareness to overall online branding? What are her perceptions? What are her attitudes? So again, a lot of sort of survey-based and sort of attitudinal sort of behavior. And then we looked at their online behavior. So actually taking this person and the demographic which is similar to it, and then tracking that person across a period of time to look at what this person does, how do they engage media, what are they doing online, what are the sites that they're engaged with, and stuff like that, and how do they search for particular brands. And then we brought in another sister company to look at the impact of offline purchases. So we took the attitudes, we took our online behaviors, and then married up with actual offline purchases to try and get an ROI equation of that particular campaign. So overall, the actual campaign was a tremendous success. And if any of you have ever sort of worked in sort of ROI on campaign efficiency, you'll know that sort of $2.62 per dollar spent is actually a very, very high return on investment for any advertising campaign. I think for the interesting thing from the beverage manufacturer, they understood better who their target audience was. They understand more likely how she thinks, what her perceptions are, what her attitudes are. And how the campaign reinforced the corporate message and how she reacted to that. They also now understand her online behavior. So where does that person go online? So now that I actually know, I understand my target audience, and if that is my demographic, where does this particular segment go online? What does she do online? And how do I get more of them or attract more of them? And then again, looking at the kind of the offline purchases, actually what does she buy? And does she buy similar things? And is there an infinity between some of the things that she buys with my own particular product? So what does that mean to me? So that means digital efficiency. So digital efficiency in data collection. I think I said before, there's no shortage of data. I think things have to be more simplified. So we can have the collection methodologies. We don't take a laborious amount of time to actually get them, as we have a lot of specialty in data collection. Connecting, I think, traditional questions, online to offline behavior. So again, a lot of interest in the industry about what is the marriage between online and offline? How do they interact with each other? What is the relationship between one and two? Does one cannibalize the other? And again, simplicity, so less data, but definitely more about connected insights, stronger digital intelligence, and a really deeper understanding of kind of what that all means and how do I put that all together to make sense of it. And again, so what does that mean to my clients? So from an agency perspective, or if I'm sort of a B2B company, again, it's not just about collecting data. I think companies are very good now at collecting data. They have various mechanisms. There's a lot of companies out there that just collect data. We are about the connection of the data. So really connecting the dots to actually make sense of what's going on. Kantar Media has got some great digital assets. I mean, really, really end-to-end that we can do a lot of stuff from campaign management, offline purchases, behavioral stuff. Really, really sort of good synergies between ourselves and the kind of the parent group. Traditional and digital. And I think what we're hearing definitely a lot in this particular conference is really the marriage between the traditional research or traditional insights departments and actually online data, and actually how do those two play together? One is maybe more immediate than the other. Traditional media might take a little bit longer to collect. Data is now available quite immediate in a digital sense. An online behavior to offline purchase. What is the whole end-to-end from purchasing, from searching and then to actually putting that into my basket. So again, looking to sort of simplify, and again, I think the message that I've got from a lot of the speeches today is that the landscape is quite turbulent. There's a lot of noise out there, and I think a lot of people are still trying to make sense about how does this relate to me and how do I relate that to my clients. So hopefully we can assist in kind of simplifying things and providing effective answers. That's it from me.